So I found these old earrings in my earring collection, but I'm still trying to decide if I can actually pull them off. Not really sure this is a good idea. It's been a little bit since I made a video all about my book and just sort of where I am, the progress I've made, the ups and downs, all of that stuff. So I've made myself a tea because I've already had a lot of coffee today, so I figure I kind of need to limit that. And I thought we would just sit here on the couch and I would tell you what's been going on and just fill you in on everything. Maybe not everything, you don't probably want to know everything, plus you gotta have some secrets, but most things. For those of you who might be a little bit new here, I will link you to a video that you can watch that will give you a little bit more about my book and sort of my background as a writer. But basically, I am in the revisions part of my novel, and this is the first revisions full draft that I'm doing. It's going really well so far. I will just give you that spoiler right at the beginning. It is going well, but it has had its difficulties and downsides and bad moments. And I'm gonna talk about it all in this video. I think it's really important to note first that I am a plotter, hardcore plotter. I am not a pantser. My first book that I wrote, I did pants, and it did not go well for me. That's clearly not my my style of writing. And my second book was sort of, I guess, a combination of both. I plotted some, but not to the extent that I should have, and that also kind of didn't end the greatest for me and sort of fell apart in revisions. So now with this book, I really hardcore plotted, and yeah, I found, I think, my perfect style of writing. That's definitely the way that works for me the best. So I did a very detailed plot before I ever embarked into chapter 1. I did, I think, write a few little scenes and stuff here and there that I knew I wanted in, but really I did not get started writing until I had plotted everything really detailed. So I had a general plot and then sort of a scene-by-scene plot. All of this being flexible because even though I'm a hardcore plotter, you do have to sort of give and take as you write the book, and you might discover things about your characters or your world. Goodness, I think my cat wants to be in the video.
Whoa, a little writing buddy.
Not so little though. I mean, look at this dude. You've grown so much. So I had a very, very detailed plot before I ever got started, and then I started the first draft. And as I was writing, I did have sort of moments in life. That sounds really weird, but there were times when I wrote more than others, and I did have breaks in there that I ended up taking just because I did a master's degree. I moved around quite a bit. You know that if you've been following me for very long. I've moved from country to country a bit the past few years. So a lot of things did interrupt my writing, and that plot was, I think, the only thing that saved me throughout all of that. Otherwise I would have long forgotten half the things I wanted to do. I would have gotten out of touch with my characters. I think it would have been a mess, basically. So the only reason this project survives is thanks to that plot. So as I was writing, those breaks sometimes would inspire me to look back at the plot again. So I did not replot, but I changed some things within my plot. That's fairly normal even if you don't take breaks. And that did sort of evolve a little bit, especially in the third part, because I sort of have my book separated into 3, and the third part definitely did the most changing over time, because it is, I guess, the climax and where everything comes together. And yeah, so I did end up changing that a few more times, and in the revisions I will get to in just a second, I will talk about it, the third part is going to change some more. But after all of that, the novel definitely has grown, even though I technically have one full draft and this is my first full revision. It's been broken up, it's been re-revised and redrafted and stuff throughout. So it's kind of difficult to say, I guess, how many different versions I've had of this novel, even though technically I have one full first draft and I'm working on my first full revisions. That also has made it a bit challenging in revisions because I really am not looking at one uniform thing that I've written and, you know, updating it where it needs updated and, you know, taking things out and adding things in and fixing things, etc. It really is something that has grown and evolved over the past few years. So I don't know, writers, anyone else, any creatives out there, do you do this too? I have actually found myself in moments looking at a concept or a part of my world or a character or something and wanting to develop it, and then realizing I had already done that and I'd already developed it. So I'm thinking that this character needs to have this flashback scene or something because this shows more about the character, which is a terrible example, but and then realizing I've already written that flashback scene and it's in the next chapter or something, because I think I have edited it. I feel kind of like ashamed to say that out loud, just because I feel like it's maybe admitting a problem I have as a writer, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to admit that I'm disorganized of all things, but I think it's somewhat normal. These little memory slips can happen, especially when you're working with such a huge work and you're working with so many different details and you are doing so many different versions. I would like at least to think that it's somewhat normal. Definitely let me know in the comments if you have any similar circumstances or if this happens to you too occasionally. Other than those occasional moments though, it is going really well. I'm working a lot with the world actually. That was one thing that I'm not sure I developed as fully in my plotting beforehand. My characterization was pretty good, although I am sort of developing some of my characters, including my main character. There are some things that I sort of left out. I think they weren't things I wrote down, and they definitely weren't things I wrote into the story, but they were things that I sort of had in the back of my head, and I just hadn't written it into the book. And I'm realizing this now, that readers are not getting these important aspects of the character that I had, but I hid them. I forgot to put them in. So I'm developing her, I'm developing some of my other characters as well. But I think the world was the thing that suffered the most, I guess, in my plotting. I had a pretty good idea in my head as I was writing. I do think I had it in here, but not only did that not fully get onto the page, but also I do think that even inside my head, I was lacking a few key details, and that's definitely affected the way I've been revising, because from the beginning of my revisions, I tried to develop this world. I actually sat down and tried to draw a map, which is not my thing. If you've been following me for a while, if you follow me on Instagram, I probably complain about it more there, but I'm not a map person. I'm a very visual person, so trying to put things on a map is, yeah, not my strength, but I did because it's extremely important, and that actually might be part of the reason why the world was not as well developed before. So now I have a map, and as I'm going through and revising, if there are any things that I left off the map, I'm adding them to the map and potentially changing little things here and there just to make sure my map all makes sense. So I'm doing that in revisions as well. There are other things like the general environment of the world. There are certain aspects of the world, like transportation, for example, which again is probably something I didn't develop as much because it's less of an interest just from me personally, but it's very important to have at least somewhat in the book, even if it's not instrumental to the plot. A lot of what's helped me realize that these things are lacking from my book is reading about these things. I've started watching a lot more channels that are writing related. I know a while ago I mentioned Jenna. She has such good videos, funny, informative, and really helpful videos that have helped me quite a bit. But I've also watched some other people. I will link anyone else that I think of in the description below. And if you have recommendations, please, please, please do leave them in the comments. That has helped me a lot in my revisions, I think. And it's just helped me sort of see the things that may or may not be lacking, and maybe things that need to be developed a little bit more. Now, of course, comes the big question that probably a lot of you want to know, because a lot of you have asked me before on social media recently: when? When is the book going to be done? When are revisions going to be done? What is the future of it, basically? What am I planning? I can't give an exact date, obviously. I have not given myself a deadline that's strict because it's not my full-time job. It's not even my part-time job. So I've not given myself a firm deadline just for the sake of staying sane. Originally, the sort of deadline I had in the back of my head that wasn't firm and planned out on a calendar or anything, but it's what I wanted, was the end of August. Didn't happen due to a lot of things. If you follow me on Instagram, once again, you probably know a little bit more about this, but I've had a lot of different things going on. I've been way busier this summer than I thought I was going to be. So basically it just didn't happen. I gotta admit, the end of August was really tough. I was a little bit upset for a while because I hadn't met that goal, but I knew it. Well, even in June, probably I knew I wasn't gonna make that goal, and definitely through July into the beginning of August, it was just obvious that I didn't have the time to meet that goal. So that's okay. I think I've pretty much gotten over that one, but I have set myself a new goal of December. I don't know when, I don't really even care when. It doesn't need to be by a specific date in December, but ideally by the beginning of December, so basically end of November, which gives me about 2 months to finish revisions, and I do think I can do that. Again, I have not planned out a calendar of it, but that's the current goal. I will keep you posted here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, all the places, all the socials. After I finish this draft of my book, I will need to stop and evaluate where I am, because I might finish this draft and then go back and look at it again and realize I missed a lot of stuff. Or I may finish this draft and then I'll immediately want to start having people read it because maybe I'll feel pretty good about it. I'm hoping the second one, but we'll see. This last section of my book, there are some things that I need to redevelop and rethink, and there are some things that I've already made notes of, scenes that I want to reread very closely and just make sure that's how I want the book to unfold, in terms of chain of events, in terms of character development, and all of these things basically. There are a few things that I'm not sure I like about how the story happens, basically. And I don't know if I'm gonna change those or not. If I do end up changing them, it's gonna slow things down and everything. And if I don't change them, I may decide after I finish this revisions draft that I wanna change them. Basically, writing is complicated. Let's just put it like that. The ultimate goal for this book, I was about to say the ultimate dream, but I'm gonna say goal because it is something that I'm not just gonna think about and hope for. I am gonna work hard to make it happen. I do wanna get it published. I would like to be traditionally published. That's the goal. It's an extremely long process. It's an extremely grueling process. I know that. I might need you guys on Twitter to boost me up occasionally when I start that process, because it's probably gonna bring me down on more than one occasion, but I'm ready for it, I think. So that basically is the plan at this point, to have the revised draft done by December, and then I will either need to further revise and edit, or I might want to have some people read it and get some feedback and do some more revisions. And I will also start working on a query letter, query, not actually entirely sure the standard way of saying that. I say query. And a synopsis, which are really important things to have. I'm actually really terrible at giving just a few sentences, a sum up of my book, which is one of the key things of marketing a book. I know that. I both work in marketing and I'm a writer. You'd think I'd figure this out by now, but I hate doing it. So I do need to really work on that, and I'll be doing all that stuff at the end of the year, beginning of next year, and then we'll see what happens. And someday, hopefully not too far in the future, I will be ready to start querying, and we'll see. So I hope that has answered some of your questions. I tried to definitely hit on all the points that I've noticed you guys asking on social media, which I've answered some of these on social media as well, but this is sort of encapsulating all of those in one video. So I hope I did answer your questions. If you have any more, please do leave them in the comments below, or ask me on Instagram. I probably will do a Q&A there at some point soon. Keep in mind that anything spoilery or anything that's too detailed about my novel, I may not necessarily answer, but feel free to ask anything about writing process, how it's going, etc., and minor details about the book. Okay, I'm gonna go write now, so thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will see you soon in another video.